Completely. I gotta boot us up. We're back. There we go. Now we're hot. So we're back with another episode, but first the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out all the sponsors. I want to thank a few of them now. Gallo Technologies for the walls behind us. Rhino Metals for all the tables. Volquartsen Firearms. Blackwater Ammunition. Enforce Weapon Lights. Galco Leather Holsters. Right On Optics. And today a special thanks to Trifecta Meal Systems. Appreciate them. Some of the guests have been benefiting from Trifecta. And coincidentally, we have the brains. Just tap mute on that. It's got the echo. In the top right. I do that sometimes to listen. We got the one and only Manager Matt. What's going on, brother?
Just another day in paradise.
Now, you just made the move out to Vegas.
Back to Vegas.
Back to Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, out here, back here. What do you think? You excited to be back?
Yes and no. I like the Midwest because I don't mind cold weather. I know a lot of people hate it and try to avoid it, but I actually like the cold weather. But I like going hiking and stuff, and I like going up in the mountains and seeing the trees and stuff. And we don't have a whole lot of that here, but
you got Red Rock.
But I still like being back out here just because it's sunny almost every day, and it's Vegas. You know, I lived here for 5 years before, and
that's right.
It was time for me to come back. Come back and do your show.
So, don't flatter me. Flattery will get you everywhere. So,
that's true.
You come back, okay? It has to be exciting because a lot's changed in that 5-year span. You got a huge bump with the UFC, with the PI. The culture's changed a lot here. It's a different environment than it was even 2 years ago when I moved here, but it's changed a lot. And obviously COVID's a bad example, but I think you have a much stronger culture here, and I think it's a fight town. That's what makes it kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's become a little bit of a hotbed in fitness now with Flex here now.
Yep.
And Jay, obviously. So you have that fitness element that is, you know, I feel it's going to have a resurgence. I think I've talked to a lot of people that want to move here because Dallas is getting flooded. That Texas area is getting loaded with people. So there's a lot of cool options here. So I think, you know, for the most part, Vegas is having a little bit of a resurgence, and I think that's exciting. What that looks like and how that plays out, I don't know, but I'm excited to see where it goes because I know I'm going to be here for at least a couple more years, you know, before I figure out what's next. But I'm a little bit like you, a little bit of a gypsy, where you kind of figure out where the next place takes you. But you seem to like it here, and I think you'll stay.
Yeah, you know, I mean, how do I say it? I fit in better out here too. You know, I work in the fitness industry, and Vegas is the fitness capital of the world.
I think so. I think so.
We got 8 Olympia winners within a 20-mile radius in one city,
and a couple of Arnold winners too.
Several
mixed in.
Wolf.
Yeah, mixed in. It's got to be a little exciting to have a little bit of everything here. I know for the podcast, it's perfect.
Yeah.
For what you do, being in the roles you're in with brands, it's never easy, right? Because everybody's trying to cozy up to you. We'll get to that. That's going to be a fun topic as we warm up. But it's never easy. But at the same time, they're all here.
Yeah.
And nobody says no to coming here. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So anytime you're throwing it out there, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
I think it's a home run. Now let's get to the juicy stuff because this is really the fun stuff to get into. I've done this with Bruce Cardenas. I've done this with other guys in similar roles. I've played this role many, many times with companies, as people know. When you got into being a marketing director, running programs, running sponsorship programs, ambassador programs, all these different things, and working with the talent, and I use air quotes very loosely around that, but working with the talent, it's not an easy job. And I want to say this just for me, not even for you. You can give your own take on it. People don't realize everybody hates you. It's hard. You know, everybody's always clamoring around looking for something, and it's hard. You have to constantly be the judge of what you want to reflect the brands you're working with and the people you're working with. And that's a hard fucking thing to do. It really is. And it causes a lot of angst Because a lot of times, I mean, what Hans goes through, what Bruce goes through, everybody goes through, people are constantly clamoring. And believe me, I've dealt with it in the gun business. It's people love you or hate you based on how much you take care of them. And it's not simple. How did you get into it? And what are your thoughts on it and where it's taken you?
How did I get to the fitness side, or just in general?
In general, a little bit of your story.
Well, I wanted to be a pro bodybuilder when I was young.
Didn't we all?
Yes.
Full time.
And I realized in my early 20s that wasn't going to happen. And at the time I was doing security in the music industry. And over time, just traveling around, I started realizing that I could do more. I could do more for the talent than even their manager and tour managers were doing. So I started, taking on more of a role of, helping with marketing, helping, just set up the
merch,
tours and all that stuff. So I had an artist that I worked with, a local artist in Florida named Aka Fool, and he had a hit record that was in the Southeast United States. It was the #1 record in the Southeast United States. So all the major labels were flying us all over the place. New York, LA, just nonstop back and forth. And he never signed a deal with anyone. He kind of just held out, and it just fizzled away. But there was a local DJ at the time in Tampa, Florida named Mad Links. And he was on Rap City and 106 in Park.
I remember 106 in Park.
Yeah. So I get a call from his best friend one day. He said, "Hey, Links wants to talk to you." I said, "Okay, give me my number." So he calls me. He said, "Look, I paid attention to everything you did. I need you to manage me." So out of the blue one day, now I turn into, I'm managing one of the top DJs in America.
Manager
that exact weekend, we flew up to Atlanta because they had the hip hop awards. So at that point, I'm handling, his career, and we're probably on the road 3 or 4 days a week for 5 years. Now, during this time, I built up all my contacts at all the venues across America. I knew all the talent. I had access to pretty much every top hip hop act because they came on his show on BET. So I started, we'd go to like this one show in particular. We go to the show and they're like, "Hey, Fat Joe's performing tonight." I'm like, "Well, where is he?" They're like, well, we booked him through so-and-so. So I knew Fat Joe's manager. So I texted him. I said, "Yo, you're on this bill with us tonight." And he's like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." So at this point, I realized there's shady people booking talent all over the place and ripping people off. And I had access to anybody they wanted. So now I turn into a booking agent. So now I'm booking talent all over the place. And I did that for, up until 2014 in the music industry. I started handling a lot of tours in Asia. I moved over to Hong Kong for several years, and I was handling a casino in Macau. I was helping with all their talent get booked there, and we were just running tours all over Asia. And
that's how Steve Shrippa started out.
Really?
Yeah, from Sopranos.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve Shrippa. He started out as a booker. He was a booker for, where the fuck was he a booker, Aiden? He was a booker. Look it up. We got to look that up. That's what producers do. He was a booker. I think it was in New Jersey or Vegas. It was one of them, and that's kind of how he got into the movie business.
Really?
It's crazy how that works out, right? Yeah. And he became a mega star with The Sopranos. I mean, pretty big star. At least TV wise, Yeah. But yeah, he was doing bookings for comics, and he figured out the same thing. Like, a lot of them were his friends, and they were getting screwed, and he was helping them sort through some of the deals and everything. And he's a big guy. He was working doors. He said he got into the story, but it's crazy, where life takes you, the little paths, the little winding roads, and then you end up, boom, one day, you have this Rolodex, right? You just wake up and you're like,
it literally hit me one day.
Yeah,
that's exactly how it was.
Make sure you keep the mic close so I don't want to lose this valuable information. It is, because people in this line of work, and I know you get it a lot, and Bruce has said it famously, if anybody wants to follow me around, they're welcome to follow me around. If anybody wants to learn how I do what I do, it's not easy. No. Like, if you're like him, you'll take an intern tomorrow, but good luck keeping up.
Yeah.
Because you have to constantly be hustling, and you have to constantly be on the lookout. But the sifting through of talent is the hard part,
Yes.
Because when you get to a certain level, and I was a CEO a couple times, I get it. I know what it's like, but you get inundated with people that want to be the next Jay Cutler or want to be the next this or the next Post Malone, whatever it is, right? Whatever, the thereafter. One, the hard part is explaining to them what they have or don't have. Not that we're experts. If we say no, by all means, you can plow on by. But the hard part is they think the answer is something you're going to give them, whether it's money or sponsorship or resources, and they don't realize that that's not necessarily always the answer, because sometimes you have to continue to refine the product.
Yes.
And that's the hardest thing, Matt, to explain. How do you break it down?
The easiest way I can describe it is a manager or agent is somebody who's holding a cup of gas and there's a fire there.
Right.
I can't start the fire for you. You have to have the fire burning before you bring me on. I can help ignite that fire. I can make that fire grow. But if you don't have the fire already, I can't create the fire for you and keep it going and make it bigger. So when you're sifting through talent, the talent they have to get it already before they bring you on board. Because otherwise, now I'm doing everything for you, and I'm basically being you, except I can't be you.
Right.
And that's the hardest part, where people hit me up all the time, hey, I need you. You can take my career to the next level. It's like, dude, you have to get your career to here before I can take it to the next level. I can't get you to here,
Yeah.
So that's the hardest part, is having to have a talk with somebody and sometimes telling them they're not as valuable as they think they are, or they just, everybody has confidence in themselves. Sometimes they think they're worth, like I said, they think they're
that's a good thing. I mean, having the confidence is a good thing.
You still have to be realistic.
You have to be realistic about where you are. And the struggle I used to run into all the time when people would hit us up for free guns or hit us up for free. You see, you've been in here, it's bananas, but it's, a lot of that is built on people trust me to put things in the right people's hands. And that's something Bruce, as a mentor, used to always say to me. And we work differently than everybody else in any business, right? We kind of mentor each other. And that's what makes being, whether it's your communications director or marketing director or brand manager, we kind of all steal ideas from each other. Like, oh, that's a good idea. I want to do that. Or this is a good idea. I've always gravitated towards creating media systems. That's what I've always liked. And when companies would say that idea sucks, I'd go out and do it myself. The podcast being one of them. I would always say, like, I'll go prove the theory, I'll go prove it. And I think that in any industry, whether it's fitness or firearms, self-defense, UFC, you meet a lot of people that have, whether you determine that it's the 5 components or 3 components that people need, they'll have 1 or 2. They'll be close. And sometimes you can kind of kick them over and make the suggestions, but it's the age-old saying, like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yes.
By no means does anyone sit back and laugh and say, I'm a wizard, I'm this. But when you stroll up to Matt on the street and you say, I really need a sponsorship, that's not the answer.
No.
And most of the time you're working for free for a lot of these brands very early on. And people don't get that. That's the biggest thing people don't get, Matt. Now, I get it if you're a big name, but people don't get that you're going to have to put 6, 8, 12 months in and see where it goes and see if a relationship can be formed and if it's symbiotic and if both sides win and if it's a win for everybody. It's not always about who gets you the most sales per se. And I've had that argument with Jay before. Yeah. It's not always about that. Like, I know how he likes to do his thing, but sometimes I'm like, Jay, it's about the quality of the content. It's about the quality of the person. It's a lot of factors. Nowadays, a lot of people don't use codes. Codes are something that are very hard to measure success on. Maybe they're creating content that's useful to your brand. Maybe they're creating, but you have to have a value statement. So my biggest thing always to people that want to be somebody, and tonight there's actually a special on HBO about that called Fake Famous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got to watch it tonight at 9.
Okay, I didn't know that.
If you want to be a value to somebody or a brand, show that value. You can show that value in a very short time, over a 3-month period. People say to me all the time, John, how do I get something like this? Or how do I set up something like this? I'm like, well, you got to set it up. The chances it's easy to say I want a business like whatever, but you got to take the chance, right? Like you took a chance going into areas that you weren't familiar with, but you just started building a Rolodex, and the Rolodex becomes the power.
Yeah.
And that's not always easy for everybody to understand. But when people come up to you at a show, how do you take them through what's the first thing you say to them? Well, because the first thing everybody always wants to say is, but I have 100,000 followers. And you always have to hip check that.
Usually I try to avoid it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
If someone comes, 9 times out of 10, they do come up to me, how do I get sponsors?
Right.
And if you think just getting a sponsor out the gate is going to change you, it's not. You don't want to go chase a sponsor. You want sponsors to come to you.
Right.
So you need to develop your brand in order to make a sponsor come to you. Because if they come to you, that means they want you. So you have more leverage on your side. But if I'm chasing a sponsor, they're not going to give you a deal. They're going to give you what anyone else who is begging to work with them.
A code and a prayer.
Yep. A code and a prayer. Like I said, I for the most part, I just try to avoid it. Yeah. Because it's such an in-depth conversation that if I spent 2-3 hours with every person that had this, I wouldn't have any time left in the day.
It shows they love talking about it. That's like the hotbed.
But look at how great I look, and I'm like, dude, like your placing in a show does not show your value.
Right.
Companies out there, if you want a company, unless you want to do your own company where you can really make the money, your value is going to come from your personality, your availability. If you're someone that they don't have to babysit, if you have something unique about you that you can be different than everybody else.
Differentiate.
If you're a girl that posts pictures of your ass every day, what difference are you than everyone else that's
100%,
doing the same
100%.
thing? So why should I pay you if you have 5,000 followers? There's a girl with 10 million that's doing the same thing.
Right.
So something about you has to be different that makes me say, hey, I know I can use this angle and these companies are looking for what you have, but I don't want to try to tell you what the companies or what the industry is looking for. I want somebody who knows it already.
You want to be shocked. You want to be wowed. You want to be shocked.
Yes.
That's, I try to explain that. It's funny you put it that way because that is the best way. I try to say this. In any investment, this is how I break it down to people in less than 2 minutes. I always say, whether it's a show or anywhere, I'll always pull someone aside and say, every company, every person, every human being that's going to invest anything, in anything, a stock, a person, anything, they want to win in 2 out of 3 ways. Okay? They're willing to take chances. They're willing to see where something goes, but they have to, in their mind, win in 2 out of 3 ways. Okay. So to your point, you have to have a differentiator. That's what somebody's always going to look for. If you're just another competitor, I'm not talking about who wins Olympia. You're just another competitor. You're a mid-tier type person or a B actor or a B music act. Maybe you got 1 hit. Maybe you're okay. Whatever it is, you have to have a differentiator. You have to be someone that does it a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. Second, this is a perfect world if you have all 3 of these. Second, maybe you can affect sales. You have something that affects sales, that moves the needle. That's a term we use a lot. Moves the needle. And sales can be affected in a lot of ways. It's not necessarily someone takes and uses a code from whatever you post. It can be this guy or this gal creates a lot of really good content that we can repurpose and we can use. And that has a value. And that's the argument I got into Jay with, is I said that has a value. If you can use that, it saves you on a photo shoot, saves you on a video shoot, you can utilize that content. That's a win. That affects sales. That moves the needle. They just might not be putting it out to the right audience. You can then fix that. You're the bridge. Tweak it. Thirdly, you have to be willing to put in the time and work cohesively with that brand. You can't come up to any company and have like, you're owed it. The attitude of you're owed it. It should be just given to me because I did X or I did Y. What you did is past.
Doesn't mean anything.
What you're doing is what I want to hear about. So when I hear a lot of dids, did, I was, did, I don't care about that. The minute you say, I have 100,000 followers, I'm like, yeah, so? I've had people on this show with 5,000 followers that have moved the needle more. Way more than anybody else. It's about the cult following. They have a community or do they just have an audience?
Yeah. So certain people, I always just say they get it. They have the je ne sais quoi. Mm-hmm. They understand what it takes. You can go look on someone's profile right now. We could pull up any particular person and I can look at theirs and I can tell you if they move the needle or not just by looking at their content. if there's somebody that, if they're signed to John's supplement company and all you see is a picture that your company made once a week posted up there and it's copy and pasted, that's intellectually lazy.
Yep.
Nobody's coming to you for information. They're not listening to you. They're looking at it and they're moving on. But if somebody else, and that person could have 1 million followers, somebody could have 500 followers, and if you say, hey, this is the ad we're running, and they look at it and go, okay, John's got a pre-workout. You know what? Let me put my iPhone right here. Let me put the camera on me. Hey guys, this is a new pre-workout. It's got this and this and this and this in it. This is my favorite flavor, and they show it to the camera.
Right.
You know, I've been working with this company for 2 months. I've worked with other companies in the past. As soon as you start explaining stuff, people don't hear you anymore. Now they listen. And if somebody listens to you, you are more valuable than somebody who just looks and swipes by.
Oh my God, yeah.
And few people understand this. So, I mean, I have people I work with that have many millions of followers, and I can't get them a contract to save their life. And it's because they don't put in the effort. Then I have people that have small followings, and they make crazy money because they put in the effort. They take time to make it look like they give a shit. And if you give a shit, your audience feels like they're part of your movement. They feel what you're telling them. They're more apt to saying, man, let me click this. Whether you have a code or not, I'm going to buy this product because of this. You know, I'm sure it's in every industry. It doesn't matter if it's guns. It doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Some people put the effort. Some people don't.
Yeah, and I think fitness, much like firearms, there was this mirror, right? There was this time when photographers controlled the balance of the force, if you will. Yeah, because the magazines. And the photographers were everything. And in fitness, you had Per Burnell, you had a whole crew of guys that came through. And now the emphasis, the athletes, if you will, and I use that as a word to cover every community, the athletes, if you will, figured out that it's better for them to be the star, not the photographers to be the star. And the companies have figured that out and sorted that out. We saw this in the gun industry. For a while, photographers controlled the balance of everything. Yeah. But now it's shifted. And it's shifted back to the ambassadors or the influencers and how they approach the game. And if I was to add one more thing onto that tree of three, as I like to call it, when I'm talking to people in the street, I always say, if you want to be the holy grail, you have your hand in multiple markets, meaning you have YouTube, you have Instagram. You know, a lot of people are just Instagram saturated. And when you're successful or you have some success, it doesn't have to be a huge following on YouTube or a lot of content on there. That tells me exactly what you said. You're not lazy. Because if you're taking the time to do YouTube, which is more of a production-based thing, of course, it shows me a little bit more. It gives me a little bit more to go on, because we all have to answer to somebody, and that's what I'm getting at, Matt. And that's the hard thing for people to understand. Yeah. We ultimately, at the end of us, is somebody on the other phone that wants to know why.
Of course.
So we have to go to them, and we have to say, well, I see this, or I see this angle. And I always like to be places where people aren't, especially in my line of work. I can't be running around on a range for the rest of my life. I can't be running, you have to evolve.
There's other ways to make it.
There's other ways. So I wanted to get into a space like podcasting where people aren't. Yeah. And if I'm in a place where people aren't, now podcasting's grown, COVID, everything else, but I like to be where people are not, because then I can always take the angle of, well, you guys don't have one. You're not in this space. Why don't we talk, or I could have that conversation. It's a lot easier conversation to have, especially if they're not there. If they're there, it's a lot harder. But people, like you said, get lazy, and they tend to stay in safe spaces.
Of course.
They don't necessarily do video. That tells me a lot if they don't do video, just like
video
you said.
Is way more valuable than any picture or any swipe up or anything you can do.
100%.
Even when you do a podcast, you probably have podcasts. If you go look at podcasts you did 2-3 years ago, you can look and see people are still viewing them.
Oh yeah.
But how many times you go on someone's Instagram page and go, let me scroll back 3 years ago and see what they did.
It's a bad bet. You're betting on how much somebody's willing to swipe down.
When I'm researching somebody, I will do that for a couple reasons. I go way back to see, did you ever work with a sponsor? What type of content did you do with them? So if you say to me, hey, I was signed to such and such company, when? I'm going to scroll way back and look at that and see how much effort did you give them. Now I'm going to look at what you've done recently. Is your effort the same now as it was then? Because if it isn't, that means you haven't evolved. You haven't seen stuff moving around you. So me, as someone who manages talent, I have to look at this and think, do I want to invest in somebody that won't invest in themselves?
100%.
Or they're waiting for somebody else to do the work for them.
Yeah.
But if you look at somebody where 3 years ago they didn't do that, and then you see they evolved to this, and now they're doing a podcast, and now they got a YouTube channel.
They're layering.
And you can see where some of the video production wasn't as good because they were doing it on their own. Now they found someone to make it better. You're looking at them going, this person gets it. They're slowly moving up. So they got the fire burning. I can put the gas and take it to the next level.
So true. You nailed it. Now, obviously having your fingers on the pulse of larger brands and larger influencers and people, we got to get into this. Do the shows survive?
Bodybuilding shows?
All shows. I mean, in general. I mean, do shows survive this? I mean, I know in fitness it's easy to pick on them, right? We're down to like the Arnold and Olympia being the flagship shows, and some regional ones will still do well. But for the most part, the national type shows have really died. But do shows survive? How do shows pull out of this? What's the solution? What's the formula? Because Arnold has it dialed in. It's a great expo.
Yeah, I think they will. The promoters just have to find other ways to generate revenue, whether it's streaming and charging $5, whether it's instead of spending $50,000 on a production saying, hey, maybe I can still do a good production and do it for 30 grand, or maybe I find ways. The shows will survive that have smart promoters, you know. But some of the shows, if you're a lower level promoter and you're not as savvy and you're not going to put that extra work, because it's a lot of work to put something on. Some of them won't, but overall, I think the big shows will be fine. And I think when it comes out on the other side, I think they'll even get bigger because they did, they did weather the storm.
What do you think they need to do? I got a lot of thoughts on this, but what do you think they need to do
to
survive and
survive
thrive?
this? Oh, God, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Like, as far as just keeping the show going, or
keeping it going and getting it through COVID, like what would you have to, like if you saw a show pop up, it's a good question for you. If you saw a show pop up in, I almost said Salt Lake, but there's some good ones there. In Oklahoma,
okay,
for example, what would you need to see is there for you to be like, they got something?
I would have to see, are they going to bring people in to help market it that have real value? What are they putting their mark? What are they concentrating on? Are they doing some type of expo? Like, for example, Dana and Rob have, several shows now. They do.
Utah show.
They've realized, let's take it outdoor. Because if it's outdoor, it's a little unique. And you don't have the same restrictions if something's outdoor versus indoor. So they found a way to say, hey, we can still do this with following guidelines and still putting on something that people would gravitate to. And it can't just be a bodybuilding show.
Right.
There has to be other elements to it. Do you have arm wrestling there? Do you have strongman there? Do you have powerlifting there? Do you have CrossFit there? Do you have X amount of like valuable influencers that will drive tickets and stand in line to get an autograph? Like, as long as you have multiple streams that are driving people in, I think you'll be okay. And when you have multiple streams, companies will recognize, hey, I'm going to go to this show because they got this person, this person, this person. I know they're going to draw.
Right.
And they don't just have bodybuilding. They have other things that draw fans in that might not be fans of bodybuilding. And now you might get new fans of bodybuilding because maybe a husband and wife went there because their friend was a power lifter, and one of them saw this show and thought, man, I've been training, I could do that too.
Right.
And you might get a new competitor down the road from it. So as long as there's multiple things happening, it's not just one, I think they can.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have figured out the formula that it can't be just the bodybuilding show, right? It has to be the powerlifting event, maybe the cheerleading event, whatever it is that's local.
Arnold has what?
He's got everything.
Athletes?
Yeah, he's got everything. And that's smart.
Ping pong, badminton.
And that's smart. He hedges his bets with all the things.
Yeah.
And I think that's step one, is get the community involved, because if you get the community involved, you're just renting the venue at that point. and you start to get them all there. Now the value add to the brands is if one, you can bring in a good crop of ambassadors or influencers, but add something different. Like I had even talked to Dana and Rob. Rob was like, COVID hit and things affected it, but he was like, yeah, I'd love to have like the podcast there. Like that's something different. You know what I mean? People can come up and do a show. Oh, I've done it at shows. It's one of those things. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but having different.
But you could get really unique content, unique background on the road. You might have access to people that you've never had access to.
And I think eventually like creating like a media row like that or something is something there's an element to that. But I have very passionate thoughts on it. I think the symposiums or the speaking is good stuff to do, even if there's 5 people in there, like you said, and you have the opportunity to win 5 people over to a brand or to a this or to a that, whatever it is. I think doing, these mini panels where you bring in a couple of big names, they work. Now you have to have some names in there because that's what draws the people in. But I think, going to the panel concept, Arnold just doesn't need to do that per se because that show has just become.
He was actually doing it this last year.
Yeah.
I had Brian Shaw and Jay. We're going to do a seminar together.
That'd be really
4 times World's Strongest Man, 4-time Mr. Olympia. They're both at the top of their respective industries, coming together and doing a unique
Q&A type panel.
Just like, and I think stuff like that works. What you were talking about, if you do something in Oklahoma, getting back to the community thing, you want to make it to where people go to this that don't know anything about anything because they know this is the event in town today. There's going to be people there. Let's go check it out. And you make it such a big event that the local radio's talking about it. The local TV station comes out, hey, such and such, there's with COVID going on right now, there's not a whole lot to do, but this local, fitness expo / bodybuilding show / this is coming to town and bring the kids out. But you could have someone like yourself on a panel there talking about podcasts to people.
Right.
It doesn't have to be just bodybuilding. It just has to be an event altogether.
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 types of panels that really work at these events, whether it's a gun show or it's a bodybuilding show or fitness show. I think there's 2 or 3 panels that hit a home run. I think people want to hear from the champions, which is the easy one.
Yeah.
I think people want to hear from people of like, how do I get my media to the next level? I think people like to hear that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It helps to have some big names. Some of us are a little bit in the shadows and it's harder to know who we are.
Yeah.
But, people want to hear from that. And I think thirdly, people like to hear about the preparation. If I wanted to participate in something like this, where do I begin? You know what I mean? So something like a 101, like I'm new to competing, now what? And you have a couple of competitors there that can kind of walk some people through the idea of competing. I feel like that's an understated one because a lot of times you get like a Mike O'Hearn and the concepts go over people's heads sometimes because he's so further along. And like if you have a Stan Efferding up there, he's talking about diets and you need a PhD.
It's too in-depth.
It becomes too much. But getting a few people that are like local, hungry trainers or former competitors or competitors even now, I think people would like to hear from that. I think that's something that would draw people in.
One that I've seen a lot too, Jay Cutler does a really good job with this, where he does just a motivational seminar.
A talk.
Just to say, hey, look where I came from and look what I did. Look what I've overcame. Look where I am. Every person in that crowd, especially now, there's probably a lot of people depressed. There's probably a lot of people, maybe they've lost their job or they're just going through struggles in life. And sometimes hearing somebody else where people see these big name people and they think they're not human. They think they don't have the same emotion and they just had it easy the whole way. And they have no idea, like me doing what I do behind the scenes. There's some fucking serious shit that goes on behind the scenes that nobody ever knows about that could easily derail 90% of people. But the people that get through it, they have this mental toughness that they just get through it.
Oh, God,
and just a motivational a speech right now in today's day, I think could help a lot of people.
Yeah, I think maybe layering in one more thing, which would be like the motivational component, is invaluable. I mean, if you can have the caliber of a Jay Cutler there, or the caliber of a Ronnie there, or the caliber of somebody like that. But most of the time, the thing is you do, because a lot of times highlighting the struggle is you'll book something like, Cutler Nutrition, and Jay will come out himself.
Yeah.
You'll book something like, if you sell a booth space or you give a booth space to somebody like Gaspari, Richie will come out himself.
Absolutely.
And you have them there. Having them there is 3/4 of the problem,
Yeah.
So it's harder to
One
book
of the
them.
things I went back to,
Right.
accessibility.
Yeah. And
it matters.
And that's what people don't realize. I'm like, if you have them there, you should be like, would you speak? Would you do this? I think one of the fatal flaws, if I can pick on Olympia for a minute, is that Olympia doesn't do the main show on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the flaws. They sell tickets to it as a separate show, and I think that's a mistake, Matt. I think streaming we could spend 3 hours on, and I'll come back to streaming, but I think it's a mental mistake to do the show separately. I think that's a little bit of a party foul.
Like you would want to have it at the Expo?
At the Expo.
At the Expo.
Because here's what I'm thinking. You have the crowd there. The crowd's built in.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this massive crowd. You have this draw. People are walking around. People are entertained. Just do the show later in the day at the same Expo. Now, I'm not saying clear it out, but I think it would be really, like, I've been to that Olympia 100 times, and when you go there, it's crazy. Like, there's a gazillion people there. I just think bringing it to a different venue and making it more of like a formal thing, I just don't think that's the world today. You know what I mean? I like the way the Arnold does it.
You would lose a obscene amount of money doing that because it costs a lot to put it on.
Right.
Because I mean, a VIP ticket is like $1,000.
Right. No,
and
they make money on it.
$30.
They make money on it. And I know the theory.
Now here they did do for years. They would have certain aspects there. They would have bikini prejudging. They'd have everything except the open men were the only ones that were only at the other.
It was at
hall.
MGM or it was at now it's at the Orleans, I think.
It was at the Orleans. This last year it was in Orlando because of COVID. But so they would still have prejudging for all the divisions except open men would be Friday night, Saturday night, and then they would have the finals for the other divisions at the.
I would love to see what it would look like. And just curious, man. I'm no expert believe me, I'm no expert at shows. But I would love to see like the Saturday ticket for that maybe be a little bit more money to get in the event, and I think you'd be very surprised what you'd get.
Yeah, I mean if you put 50,000 people in there and everyone pays an extra $20 maybe instead of 8,000 or 9,000
because people want to see the big names, and when they do, I feel like everybody remembers the first time they saw, Ronnie or Arnold or whatever. Everybody remembers that moment, and I feel like you would indoctrinate a new group of fans to it.
And then there's that level of fan that there are people that just want to go to the Expo because they just want free shit. They want a bunch of samples. They want to come with their bag.
That's true.
And they want nothing to do with the bodybuilding show. And
but that's part of the company. I've said this for years in the gun business. That's the company's fault because they create that environment.
Yeah.
Like you have to have it, but at the same time, you get the people, we call them they got the carts, and you call them like they're like collectors. Like they're looking for you got a patch. You got a patch. If I had $1 for it, that's a big thing at gun shows. Like, you got a patch? No, go away. Like,
give me $1. No, I want a free one.
Can I have a patch? So I get it. And the fitness shows, they're sample chasers. You get a sample. People wait in line at Quest for like a little itty bitty, like you, like the craziest thing I've ever seen given away is at Quest. They were giving away those little slices of the pizza when they came out with the member.
And it's like a little corner.
And I was like,
in line for an
what
hour.
the fuck? I remember seeing Bruce. I went in the back and microwave one myself. I'm like, I'm going to take this whole thing.
Sometimes I walk through the Expo just to look around, and I'll look at some of these lines, and I'm like, yo, man, someone's standing in line for 2 hours. And I walk up front because I'll know somebody there. I said, what do you guys put in the bag? And I'll look at it, and be like,
are you kidding me?
Are you serious? Like, people are standing in line for 2 hours? This is like a garbage bag that's got like 5 samples and like a brochure in it. Like, I'm not standing in line for this.
And Singerman's giving him a 1 ounce energy drink. Like, no, I'm sorry, but it's true. No, it's true. I think the companies are partly to blame for that.
Of course, and because for years they just gave the house away, and now they realize like, hey, we're not making the same amount of money as we once were. We can't, and these samples aren't free. They're way more expensive than the large
right.
Ones. And they're like, we can't give away 100,000 samples. We're only going to get like a 2% return on this.
You're much better off doing something micro that's like, hey, our first 100 visitors to the booth that sign up for our email list, we're giving this. You know what I mean?
Or you just you sell stuff there at crazy low prices just to get
I
your
love
product
that
in their
idea.
house.
I love that idea. Why don't more brands do that though?
Because they don't have people that think out of the box in their department. And that's not my job to tell them to do that. If they want to pay me, I'll help them.
But that to me is, I've been saying that for years, even in the gun business. Like, SHOT Show's not a selling show, but the NRA show is.
Yeah.
So I've been saying it for years. I'm like, have a consumable product that you can take to something like that. And if you take 100 units, it's 100 units. If you take 200 units, it doesn't matter. The amount is irrelevant. You don't need to take thousands.
It's all about getting that product in their hand.
Yeah.
And if your product's that good, you know they're going to go back online and they're going to buy it.
Yep.
So it's just an ROI, situation.
It's a marketing endeavor.
And if you can find a way to sell enough product to recoup the cost, you just got all that for free. Like, you broke even.
Yeah.
So it didn't cost you anything. But
and you might break even on your show.
Yeah. And some people go to these expos and they make a lot of money. Because they'll
shaker
have a
bottle
popular,
guys.
It costs like 8 cents to make one. They sell them for 20.
The shaker,
I'm in the wrong business.
The shaker bottle guys are hilarious to me. I mean, we've seen a lot of crazies. Fitness especially brings out the real crazies, like the t-shirt guys. The t-shirt guys are good. They're not that bad. But the sock thing, I don't understand. The
shaker thing for years got me, and I'd walk around and I'd just talk to people. Hey, well, why is the shaker different? Well, when you put it in here, when you shake it, it twirls a different way. I said,
it's got a strainer.
Like, isn't the whole point just to make sure the powder dissolves? Like, does it really matter?
Oh, it's hilarious.
No, but this one here, and if you turn this way and this way, it injects more protein. I'm like, oh, dude, it's too much for me.
I'm always like, I'm lost.
I'll take the dollar one.
Right. I mean, fitness shows tend to bring out a slightly. At gun shows, you have something different. You have the pouch guys. There's a pouch for everything.
Oh, really?
So there's literally booths that they're like, you don't understand. It's like designing a better mousetrap. It's like, we made this pouch and you can put 2 AR mags in it and you can put this in it and then you can put a lighter in it and then it turns into like a Rambo canteen. Like, it's like,
where are you ever going to use this?
Yeah, it's like some guy cooked up this nylon in his basement and brings it to a show. And I get it. He's trying to stimulate interest. And the best part, we all have our isms in every business. The best part about the gun business is they'll be like, I have the special forces looking at it. And I'm like, yeah, and there's like 2,000 people in that community. That's not a business plan.
You can look at anything.
You could say
anything's gonna happen.
You could have a lemonade stand that does better business. I'm like, oh really? Oh, that's cool. Or you get the guys who make rails. They're like, you don't understand. I'm making the rail lighter. And we're like, yeah,
like what, 3 grains?
Yeah, 3 grains. We used a coating that's 50 times lighter. So you get all these, very interesting concepts and very interesting things.
Big words to describe something, make it sound better than it is.
Fuck. The pouch guys are hilarious. They are the equivalent of the shaker bottle guys. Like, it's literally on that level.
Sometimes just going to expos and just watching people. For me, it's funny because there's when you go to an expo, you're still in public.
Right.
And there's people that go to expos, and I always pick on this, and I'm sure people who listen will get offended by this, but if you go to an expo, don't dress like you're going to the gym. They'll wear the T-back thong tank
costume,
top, and they'll have on the short spandex shorts and their fanny pack and their workout
no
boots.
sleeves.
And I'm like, dude, you're not at the gym. You're walking around in public. Or they'll walk around no shirt. I'm like, put a shirt on. Like, dress like appropriate for what. Would you wear that to church? Would you wear that anywhere else? You're out in public. Just dress like a normal person.
That's hilarious.
You don't have to wear the 1980s, like King Kong Bundy.
It'd be funny if they did, like the T. Michael shirt. That would be kind of funny in its own way.
Well, there's different if you're doing it for attention, for a skit or something. I get it, but some people just walk around like this all day.
Some people live like that.
It's like, dude, you have baby oil on? Like, what did you tan? Like, where I used years ago on the message boards, you would see people, I'm starting my diet January 1. Like, for what? The Arnold. Like, you're competing? No, I'm going to the expo, but I got to look jacked at the expo. It's like,
oh God.
Well, good luck with that. Have fun. Walk around in your thong tank top at the Arnold when it's 2 degrees.
Oh, that's hilarious. It is 2 degrees there at that time.
Every year there's a snowstorm.
Did he announce is he moving it, the date yet?
It's getting moved. I don't think they've officially announced it yet, but it's going to be towards the end of the year. Because I spoke to Bob Lormer not long ago, and he said he just has to make sure
probably
that
like in
he can
October,
have
November.
September, October, somewhere in there. He just said we're not going to be able to have assembly by March. and you don't want to. I mean, a show like that it's an 8-figure, ordeal to put it on. So you can't put that type on if you're only
that's
allowed,
$1 million show.
Oh, many millions.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I remembered reading in the newspaper because I was there last year. Even though they shut it down, we were already
Right.
in. I got there a couple days before everybody, and a lot of the big names didn't come. Like Jay didn't come, and Dana and Rob didn't come. But I remember reading in the paper.
It was the first year I didn't go in like 5 years.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was. You could go to the show, but the expo was completely shut down.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing else, and they weren't supposed to have fans in the shows either. But it said in the newspaper, if I remember right, like $56 or $57 million it brings to Columbus in revenue.
Wow.
Between hotels and airport taxes and this $56 or $57 million.
What's that good steakhouse that's across the street? I always forget.
I forgot the name. I forgot the name of it.
Oh yeah, I forget the name of it too.
There's a couple. There's a really good one it's right next to the Hyatt. It's like older on the inside. Yes. It's like it feels like a mafia vibe.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of it.
Everybody goes there. I just can't remember the name of it. It's
good.
Bugging me.
Arnold eats there every night.
Yeah, I forget the name of that steakhouse. We used to sneak over there and eat all the time. Yeah, and then there's a sushi joint that's like 2 blocks away. That spot is a great spot.
It's good because it's just
and it can support the crowd. That's what's good about the Arnold.
Yeah.
Is it can support the crowd. And for a Midwest show, you wouldn't expect it if you were a first timer, but it's a good show.
Also, like, where Columbus is at, within 5 hours, you have like 40 million people. Toronto's a little over 5 hours away, all the way from Chicago to Indianapolis.
It's
to
a good
Philadelphia,
hub.
Detroit, Windsor, Canada, Louisville, Atlanta's maybe 6 hours. So you have all these major cities that are within driving distance. So you get a shitload of traffic. If you don't have to have a lot of money to go. If you're on a budget, you can go there and back on a tank and a half of gas, put 3-4 people in there, and you can actually buy stuff at good. They'll give really good deals there. And you could put them in the trunk and go home. You could take the kids or the family there too.
Yeah, I think it's smart when the brands sell. I think that's genius. Yeah. I think the ones that don't, and I notice a lot that don't, they're really missing out. But I think selling at the shows is really the best thing to do instead of the giveaways. Give a discount. Like you said, I think that's the smart play for sure.
The Arnold sells, I would say it's probably the only other one that might sell that I've seen more products selling is if you go to Germany, to Cologne, Germany, to FIBO. But FIBO draws, I think the Arnold's about 250,000. FIBO's approaching 400, 350 or 375.
I've been once.
It's just stupid.
Now, it's interesting now, and I got to ask you this because you're working with multiple different things. It's no longer just fitness. It's no longer any one area. What athletes do you like working with the best?
That's a tough one. I like working, everybody I work with, that I physically work with, I like working with them. I like all of them. But in general, you like the people that give you the least amount of problems. On a business side, someone that I don't have to say, go make that post. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? People that they know what they have to do and they're on cruise control.
Do you find that more, I'm going to go deeper, do you find that more on the fitness side or on the fighting side or on the celebrity side?
I think it's just an individual thing because there are some people in the fitness industry that are big names that are easy to work with. And there's people that are big names that just make your life a living hell.
You have any favorites?
Yeah. It would depend on favorites as what? Like favorites putting people places?
Working with them.
Through
the years, it doesn't have to be.
People like, and I'll use Jay as an example, people like Jay that I don't have to babysit. I don't have to say, hey, we need to be on time. We need to do this. We need to do this. He knows what he has to do, and he does it. And he's
professional.
Yes, a true professional. So he's always going to be kind of towards the top of that list. But I've known him for half my life. But I don't have to go way above and beyond.
Right.
The fire's burning. It's already blazing. I just throw a little gas on it here and there to make it even bigger than it already is.
He makes it super easy.
Yeah.
He makes it super easy.
But everyone I work with, they all there's something about them that's different.
Jay's a little bit of the shining example.
Yes.
I mean, he's a triple threat in many ways in terms of what he's built, where his personal brand is,
Yes,
what he's done through the years. So he has a little bit of everything. He's proved it on the field, off the field. He's hit all the notes. And I think, as I said, coming back to that winning in 2 out of 3 ways, I think that's what you look for, is where is this person going to be a win?
He's got 3 out of 4.
Yeah,
if that's possible.
Yeah, he's got the triple threat down, and then the intangibles that come with it. Because I use those terms because in baseball we refer to them as a 5-tool player. If they have all the tools, then you can find a place for them somewhere. It's kind of the running joke in Moneyball was like, you're talking about he's got a good body, and what are we selling, jeans? But that's kind of a little bit of the metric you're using, is how does this person fit into anything that I'm doing, whatever it is, or the brand is doing, or the direction a brand is going. And that sometimes is the hard thing. When you're dealing with athletes and it comes a time to part ways, which is never easy, it's the hardest thing. They don't quite understand the why. Have you found a method? Because I don't have one. The best way to explain it to them?
No. There isn't. It just kind of just you see it coming, and I think both sides see it coming, and then you just sometimes it's just a one-time conversation. Sometimes people blow up, but it's not easy. Not easy parting. I mean, anyone that I've worked with in the past that I no longer work with, I wish them nothing but the best. I hope they all do well. Because in my world, everyone that's at the top, even if I don't work with them, it's in my best interest that they succeed.
Right.
Because if they don't do well, it can affect people I work with, even though it shouldn't, but it still could. So if somebody's at the top and they work with a company and they don't do X, Y, and Z, if I try to put somebody at that same company down the road, they're going to say, well, I worked with so-and-so. They had this title. They had these accolades. They had this. They weren't able to do X, Y, and Z. So we're not taking that risk anymore.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, where companies will judge an industry based on what one individual does.
And it's harder when you're with a brand that sets an industry-wide standard. Like, I can't imagine, like, for example, what Hans goes through at Monster, what you go through at Trifecta, what certain, Bruce back in the day with Quest, when Quest was at its pinnacle.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to have those conversations because sometimes someone just doesn't fit a brand anymore. It's just that simple. They've evolved and you've evolved, and sometimes it just doesn't work. It makes
I have to do it on two levels. I have to do it with people I personally work with, but then for some companies that I consult for, I have to do it for them as well. So there are times when when we look at the numbers and they're like, hey, we need to part ways with them. And I'll always tell them, let me do it. I brought them here. It's my responsibility.
Let me deal with
that conversation, not coming from up top. It needs to come from me.
Yeah.
It's a respect level. So, but then there are athletes that I manage their careers. When a company wants to part ways with them, they call me, they don't call the athlete. Then I have to have the conversation with the athlete. This is why they're parting ways with you, and hopefully they learn from it. So in their next endeavor, they don't make those same mistakes. So I have to do it kind of as a talent manager, but also from a corporate side as well.
Yeah. I've only encountered one really bad breakup in my time of doing it and working with brands. I mean, when you get to this point, I mean, you can pick up the phone and help anybody if it's helping them. But I always tell them, I'm like, this isn't the end. It's just the end with this brand. Let's figure out where let's figure out where we can land you. So it's a softer landing, and sometimes that's the hard conversation. I've had people in the past, one person in particular, they weren't quite ready for sponsorship and they probably were rushed to the altar, so to speak. And you knew in your head it was going to go bad. You try to sometimes head it off at the pass because they just don't fit the brand, whether it's they're dealing with personal issues. There's a whole slew of things that come into play. And sometimes, like I said, it just runs its course. And, you know, I've only lost one relationship with a human being because of it. And I feel like I'm lucky, you know, through the years, being, you know, 4 times a marketing director, comms director, and, you know, there's been one uneasy moment, but for the most part, you always try, when you're in this role, you're always trying to land them a soft seat. You're always trying to find a place to put them, especially if you care about them. You're always trying. I mean, I work with, it's not a mystery, I work with Tony for years, Real World Tactical. I mean, Tony and I have been friends for years. We're always helping each other. I always tell people, I don't represent Tony, but here's what I think how he'll approach it, or here's how I think he'll look at a deal, or here's what I think will make sense for him. And this is what's going to come with him. And we know each other well enough at this point that he can say the same about me, or about, you know, this is what he's going to say, or this is what, you know, he'll be thinking. I can give you a leg up in talking to him, but the reality is it has to fit on all sides. This is where he's at. But, you know, when you get to a certain level, the hard part in the conversation for guys on our side of the table is, as I said before, they don't know who we have to talk to on the other end of the phone. And that's what you were alluding to, is a brand will come to you and say, you know, I don't know if this makes sense anymore. Or maybe you say it.
Yeah. I've only had a couple athletes that I've had that with in even when I worked in the music industry, and I've been doing between music and the fitness for 20 years. I've only had a couple, but each of those people, if they needed me at this day, some I don't speak to,
I say the same thing.
I would help them.
Yeah.
And I have. And there's times when they've made mistakes since I haven't worked with them, and I've went to bat for them without them knowing, because it's the right thing to do.
Isn't that the crazy part, Matt? Is like behind the scenes, people don't realize we all talk across multiple industries.
Yeah.
We all talk in one way or the other. You could pick up the phone and ask about something. In an extreme sport area, I could pick up the phone and call you. We all talk, and we know who are the I feel like sometimes the athletes don't get that.
Yeah.
And it's like they want to throw around, you know, sometimes in this heat of the moment where they're like, fuck you, you know, and you're like, all right, relax, get it out. But, you know, we're all going to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I'm like, you need my house, you need my car, here's my key.
See, but then I still have athletes where I have where I have them placed at companies where the companies don't act right.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm the asshole.
Right.
Now, when the company, hey, you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, after they did with their X, Y, and Z, and they went above and beyond, and you're trying to screw them, and then it's, oh, fuck you, you're an asshole, wait till I see you, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight you.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not.
That's the best.
But then they get mad at me because all I did was say, hey, man, just do what the contract said you were going to do. I'm not asking you to do anything immoral. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm not asking you to cheat, steal, nothing illegal.
What you agreed to.
I'm just asking you to do what you said you were going to do. And because you're not doing it, or I catch people trying to steal or trying to screw somebody, and I call them on it, and then it's, you're a piece of shit, you're hard to work with, you're a scumbag, and blah, 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 blah.
Tony and I joke about the fight me thing. The fight me thing's pretty funny, because if I had $1 for every time somebody walked right by me at a show, I'd be rich. I wouldn't have to be in it. You'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
For every time somebody said, when I see you, and you walk right by them, and I'm like, like, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to see you, you know? Like, this is just, but it's the difference between, that's like the juvenile side of the business.
Yeah.
It's a very juvenile side. It's interesting because you come across all these different personalities, and every wedding starts out great.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Every wedding starts out great.
Course.
Nobody wants to be around for the divorce, right?
No.
So you have to, so I've learned in the past, like when I introduce someone now to a company or a brand, or somebody reaches out to me, I just literally just did it. I'm not going to say who, because it's very fresh, but I literally just introduced someone to a brand, a UFC fighter. I said, yeah, make a call. Let me see. And we squared someone away. And, you know, I said to him before it even started, I said, listen, just remember, it always starts great. You know, see where it goes. You know, it might work out, it might not. But I preempt the divorce now. I'm always like, listen, it's not going to be a forever thing. Just, you know, run with it. I think it's a good opportunity. I think there's something there. Go into it with clear eyes, you know, and just get what you can out of it and see where it goes. And if it works out, maybe you guys, what I consider a long relationship is like a 2 to 3 year run with a brand is a great relationship. I mean,
and see when you and how we joke when you have the contract signed, the prenup's already in the end of the contract right away. once this is terminated, this and this and this is what's going to happen. So you know ahead of time.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, but again, also, if I know a company is looking for a certain type of person that has certain, you know, how they conduct themselves, how they handle things, and also I know who the person they're going to be dealing with at that company, if I know how they communicate and their strengths and weaknesses, I won't put an athlete that has a real strong personality somewhere where I know they're going to butt heads.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them up front, hey, this company's offering you X amount of dollars. You're going to butt heads with them because I know how you are and I know how they are. And if you do it, it's up to you. But just know a bridge is going to get burned at some point.
Right.
Because, and you know what's going to happen? I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb because it's my responsibility to defend you. And you're going to put me in a really bad spot. So I try, if you're a strong personality, I try to get you at a company or a sponsor that doesn't have people that can deal with it better, that understand.
Well, you can
it.
have that personality.
Yeah,
and
you can just be
like
careful where you put them.
I'm an insanely strong personality. I work well with two types of groups. I work well with women manager owners. I grew up with two sisters, so I'm okay with that. Older sisters, so I can gravitate towards that, and I work really well with owners that. So there's two types of owners. I say it all the time. There's owners that assume everybody in the room is smarter than them until proven otherwise. And then there's owners that think they're the smartest person in the room all the time.
Yes.
I can always work with the former. I can't work with the latter. Okay. So I like to be in a room where you can share ideas. And sometimes people take that as butting heads.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a really good friend of mine in marketing who's very high up the firearms business. He said to me one day, he goes, John, I'm going to explain the firearm marketing 101 to you. Present an old idea rebooted, and you'll always have a job. Present a new idea, and people will try to run you out of town because nobody wants to do anything different.
Yeah.
Because the first thing out of a lot of people's mouths, especially in that 45 to 55 range, is always, this is how we always did it, or this is how we do it. So sometimes being a strong personality, it's okay to make ideas, suggestions, but at times, you know, you have to understand you're a spoke on the wheel of many spokes, and you have to, you know, kind of see the forest through the trees. So that's always hard. But I can understand and relate to the people that butt heads with ownership or maybe, you know, content managers, things like that. But a lot of times, you know, you hope that the person that you bring on is just suggesting better ways to do things. Like, hey, this is
it. You know, sometimes it'll be like, I can just think of different examples in my head where an athlete has a certain things that they're supposed to do that were agreed upon, and then somebody on the other side decides, well, we want you to do more, but they don't discuss it with you.
Right.
They just expect it. Well, and they'll call me, hey man, I'm paying so-and-so this much money. That motherfucker better do this. And I'm like, dude, we never even discussed this.
Right.
How can you expect this? Well, if they don't do it, I'm just going to cancel the contract. And you're like, geez. So now you have to sit and think, okay, this is a lot of money someone's getting paid. Is what they're asking for, is this something we can renegotiate, or is it something that's reasonable? If it's reasonable, you can sit down and say, hey, look, man, it's not a big deal. Let's do it. But sometimes it's not reasonable. Sometimes it's like disrespectful. And you're like, no, dude, this isn't happening. So then the divorce starts. And now it's back forth, because they're literally trying to screw you.
Yep. You gotta,
and you're the bad guy for saying, don't screw me.
The two best pieces of advice you'll ever get in life are, you gotta know when to hold them, and you gotta know when to fold them.
I listened to that song the other night.
You gotta live by that. It's literally like, how far do we want to go with this? You know, like, are you willing to bend here? Are you willing to do this? Now, I have a theory. I think that ambassadorships, influencerships, I think companies are getting savvier. I think they're getting smarter, and I think they're understanding that. 5 years
the ones that are winning are.
Yeah, 5 years ago, it was the Wild West, Matt. It was the Wild West. You could get crazy deals. Yeah. But I've had people call me up in the gun industry because, in many ways, Tony and I were the first to get fitness deals in that space. But I've had people call me up in the gun industry. They're like, you know, John, it would be just awesome. I'm looking for like a $3,000 or $5,000 fitness deal. And I'm like, what? I'm like, those like don't exist. Good luck. I'm like, let me know when you get one. I'm like, they're not real. And if they are real, they're real if you put in a year of free hard work, and a brand might reward you with saying, hey, we'll pay a little for past performance and we're going to pay a little for future. And this is what we're thinking. And it really, and I've had some big notable names in my industry approach me with that. And I kind of like, what? Because the world has changed and evolved in that space. And that's what sometimes the athletes forget. But the companies have come a long way in understanding how to develop those programs a lot better to make them a win. And that's encouraging to see. I like to see that. I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think there's still an intangible component. Obviously, brands like First Form do a really good job. There's a few out there that are doing a really good job. Redcon in the past has done a really good job. I know they're rebooting some versions of their program now. But I think, there's an opening for these companies to really get it right with COVID, because now they can kind of reboot everything and hopefully come back bigger and stronger and understand where the pieces are. And I'm constantly having those media conversations with brands. We've had them. I mean, you and I have talked about them for 3-4 hours at a time. It's constantly analyzing the pyramid of what we have, what we don't have, what we're looking for. And I hope the people that listen to this take a little of the information you've given and understand kind of what brands are looking for and what makes sense and how to approach it the right way. If you're out there and you're listening and you have 2, 3, 10,000, 100,000 followers, doesn't matter. Understand that it's not necessarily how big your following is, how many swipe ups you get or whatever. You have to form a cohesive bond with that brand and those people, and you have to really gravitate towards the perfect marriage is always when somebody uses the product to begin with.
Of course. That's
always when it's perfect. If they're
every deal that I ever have signed with anybody, I've had companies call and offer obscene amounts of money for different people.
Yeah.
And hey, before anything is getting where this athlete's range is, if you can fit that range, fine, but they need to try your products. Because if they don't like them, I don't want them to be there. I want it authentic. If it's not authentic, it's not going to last.
I've always said be a customer first.
Of course.
Whenever someone approaches me to show them, like, are you a customer of theirs? Be a customer first. Try it. Go up there and buy one right now. Your story will be more powerful.
Certain on a different topic, when I was bringing Dana and Rob Bailey on the Trifecta, Rob and Dana, I got them a unique, code to put in. And Rob said, I want to experience.
Yeah, that's how he is.
What the customer experiences. So he logged on, she logged on. He went through, ordered food, did everything exactly like he was a customer, waited when it came in, saw it, because he wanted to know, if I'm going to push this, my name's attached to it, I want to know the process.
On the blind, I want to know.
I want to know it. And he was the first person that, like other people, they would look at the website, we'd send them food, they try it, but he wanted the whole experience. And that was, I think, the final nail in the coffin where he said, all right, we're ready to come.
He's a rare breed.
Yes.
He was texting me this morning. He's a rare breed. He really is. We were talking about the show and everything else. And Rob and Dana are really unique. And when you have the opportunity to do that, and I've tried to do that in the past with many brands. I don't do it as much. Again, I got a 3-ring circus here, and I'm up to my eyeballs. But I do my best to try to emulate that, because I've learned from great guys like Rob and seen how they approach things. They want to support you first.
Yeah.
And then see where it goes. There's plenty of time to get free stuff.
Of course.
Plenty of time for that. But wanting to support someone first or support their endeavors first is really, truly important.
Yeah.
Listen, it's been an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow.
I know. Believe it or not.
Wow.
We're chugging along.
Good.
Listen, you're local. I want to have you back on.
Of course.
At some point.
I told you before, I don't come on podcasts. I've only done one in 15 years.
Well, you're local, so you're going to do this
one.
So
now the one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to come do this. You know why? Because it's just different for me. And I like it.
Yeah, but you give good information.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I'm going to say something that's sincere. I do this with every guest, when I talk to them about what I see in them. You people like you, Bruce Cardenas, Hans Molenkamp, myself, and not so much now, in a past life, but there's a lot of information there. You've spent a lot of time interacting with a lot of different people. I understand the business of trying to keep people happy. No one understands what you're going through better than somebody like me or in that circle, or gets it, trying to string together this thing that people see at the end of the day. And it's hard to justify sometimes your worth in these spaces that we're in because people don't fully understand it. Because if we were in finance, we'd be rainmakers. We'd be the guys, you know, with the phones ringing all the time. You're a creator of things. And that's a very hard thing to articulate to people, because I get people all the time that want to hire me and they're like, you know, well, what do you bring to the table? I'm like, well, let's break that down. That's a loaded question. I'd say, how many phone calls do you have to make to accomplish anything? Would you like to see those phone calls go down to 1?
That's a great way of putting it.
Because I can do that. And that's a role that you play.
I've never said that the way you just did, but there's times where people have done things and they're like, man, it took me a month to do it. I was like, I could have got that done tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I already.
What would you pay to have it go down to 1 degree of separation?
Exactly.
And that's the best way to sum up what guys like you do.
Yeah.
What guys like Bruce do, what guys like myself do. It's like, what would you pay? I might not have $50 million. I've had this conversation with multiple industry leaders, guys with $50 million in the bank. I'm like, what would you do to have your day be boiled down to whatever you want to accomplish, never hearing a complaint back and having it accomplished faster than you've ever had it done?
Yeah. It's priceless.
Yeah. It's the speed that kills.
Yep.
And do you want to execute and accomplish things with speed? Or do you want to just go back to ringing the bat phone all day to figure out how to get there? Go for it, you know? Yeah. But if you want to accomplish things and you want to move the ball forward in whatever endeavor you're doing, you got to have the book for that. You got to have the tenacity for that. I used to say to an owner of a company, I used to say this all the time, and he may be listening. I used to say, you don't pay me to just look good. You pay me to accomplish things without complaining back to you. I never come back to you with a no, we can't do that. I always say, let me go make a couple calls, and I'll have the answer for you.
I always just say, tell me what you want done. I'll make it happen.
Yep. Give me an hour. Let me make a couple calls. Let me get some answers. And that's the speed. Otherwise, you can go back to jerking off under the table, whatever it is. You know, count your money. I don't know. Scrooge McDuck.
You know, it's there's only a couple brands that I work with closely. You know, Trifecta, BYLT, and both of those companies understand what I do. And I just say, I operate different than other people. I'm not going to go sit at a desk. I'm not going to pull a 9 to 5. You tell me where you want to be. Get out of my way.
And let's get you
there. I will get you there.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when I came on board with Trifecta, he gave me a wish list of names he wanted that they've been trying to get. And I just looked at it. I said, give me a year, maybe 2. I'll have everyone on this wish list. And I got wish list. I think it took me about 18 months. I had all of them and probably triple
plus
that were just as valuable. But it takes time. You can't always snap. Some things you can snap your finger and get done. Some things, it's relationships and certain people that you work with. If you pick up the phone and call them, they have a level of trust there that they know you're not bullshitting them. It's real.
Right.
And other people, another person could call with the exact same company, same thing. They won't pick up the call. Or if they do, it's going to be a month-long negotiation because they don't know you. They don't trust you. They got to research you. But if I pick up the phone and call somebody, they know I've already done that due diligence. And I'm not calling them until it's ready. And
you know you're successful in an industry when you're one phone call away from the most influential person in that industry.
Yeah.
You can say money, but historically what I found is if you have money, you want fame or influence. If you have influence and fame, you want money. Yeah. So if you're one phone call away, you're in a good place.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the way I see it.
I don't think there's very many people I can't get on a call.
That's the key thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a funny story about that offline, but I'll tell you a really funny story about that. So, all right, let's tell everybody where they can find you and how they can reach you.
On Instagram, Manager Matt1. And my website that I own an agency. It's just Physiques with a Z, PHYZIQUES.com. But just the Instagram is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Well, We'll put the links down below. Matt, I appreciate it. And
No,
you're going to be on
absolutely.
again. We'll do something. I want to do something with a panel because everybody's asking about panels. I want to have like you, Jay, on. I'd like to have a panel, or maybe you and Bruce. Some combination would be fun. We're going to do something like that. I'll hold you to it.
Absolutely.
I think that'll be great. I want to shout out the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Thank all the sponsors. Go support the sponsors. Go buy something. I want to thank Trifecta. Trifecta is one of the reasons Matt's here. I appreciate him. All the guests this month are going to be getting Trifecta meal cards. I appreciate them.
And I'm going to get you some other Trifecta athletes on here too.
Yeah.
Some big ones.
Oh, yeah. We'll have some guests. There'll be some stuff coming out of this. I look forward to it. And that's everything. I think we're good. Let's sign out.
All right. Whew.